Ladies and gentlemen, today on the program, we're flying solo again, kids, so there ain't no need for a preamble. One thing I can tell you, my sidekick's back, so hey, Danny boy, roll intro! Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. Yes, hello, podcast land. What you don't know, as you're listening to this, wherever you are, whenever it is just how long the walk from upstairs to my little studio was today. Now I can tell you that this is take 2 of this Solosode. In fact, I recorded a whole 47-minute episode just yesterday. And when I played it back to myself, I thought, I don't want to release this. And I can't even explain why exactly. What I can explain is that I'm feeling an enormous amount of resistance right now as we crest into 2020. And if you've listened to some previous podcasts, if you've read some of the blogging I've done, you'll know that I've written about resistance before, and this is a concept pulled from the great Stephen Pressfield, famous for many things, including writing The War of Art, which is kind of a seminal tome about this creative process and how you will inevitably butt up against resistance whenever you try to create anything. And resistance comes in many forms, and it plagues me, man. I don't mind telling you that I deal with it all the time. And so how it turns up in my life is I record a podcast episode and then I just chuck the whole thing. And the next day I feel guilty about that and I feel bad about it. And then I spend most of the day pacing upstairs, trying to force myself to come down, sit in the studio, and try to put a podcast episode together. Now, I know I make this sound seamless, right? And I know that there are people tuning in right now to episode 34, and they go, wow, how is it only 34 episodes? It must be at least 1,000 because it's just so smooth. We all know that's not true. And, if you're in any sort of creative field, then you probably know what resistance is. And I'm plagued by it right now, kids. Very, very difficult for me to come down here and do this right now. So I hope it turns out okay, you know? And there's stuff I talked about in the now forgotten Solosode that I'm going to let go. And I'm going to talk about a few other things that I did include. And that begins with just my pop filter. That begins with a shout out to the January crowd. Now look, it's real now, right? This is the first real week of January, of the new year, of the new decade, and all of those resolutions you may have had, all of those goals you've had in the back of your mind, all the things you want to change or do or tackle or improve or let go of. Now is when it gets real. Maybe for the first week of January, it was a little easier for you to do those things because it was, maybe you weren't working. Maybe you were still on holidays or the kids were on holidays and it was not real life time, okay? It was like free time, and it became easier to do some of those things, and you have that initial burst of energy. And I gotta tell you, the January crowd is out in full force at my gymnasium, the gymnasium that I go to is overrun with strangers, and this happens every year. And we all know what that is, don't we? That's the New Year's resolution people, the people that are going to get in shape, the people that are going to lose the weight, the people that are going to change their lives. And it's a great tradition to make fun of the January crowd and to be irritated by the January crowd. And I cannot claim innocence here. I have in the past been very irritated by the January crowd because you get to your gym and you've been going there for years and you know where everything is and you can get to everything. And then all of a sudden you walk in one day and it's absolutely packed and you can't get to anything and there's people everywhere and there's a weird energy in the gym and it can be frustrating. But that's the January crowd. Now we all know a lot of the January crowd's not going to make it, okay? February rolls around, a lot of those people will be gone. And that's because those resolutions you set with the best of intentions run up against lifestyle. And lifestyle begins this week. First week of the month, the first real week of the month, of the year, of the decade. So maybe when you were on holidays, it was easy to get to the gym those first couple of times, and you felt good about that, but now you're back at work. You're back at the office, according to the television commercials, and I'm getting a little frustrated. I think we should be, all of us, a lot more offended by all of the television commercials that presume that dad works in an office, or mom for that matter. Have you noticed this? It's a pet peeve of mine every Christmas season when the commercials come on, or Father's Day season, when the commercials come on and they're like, get dad this thing, and dad always invariably has a shirt and tie on, and he works in the office, and that's not the reality for a lot of people, okay? So let's dispense with this stereotype of dad or mom working in the office. That's like a small segment of the population. That's an irritation of mine. I don't work in an office anymore yet. I'm also not a dad, so maybe it doesn't apply to me, but for some reason there's this presumption that everybody works in an office somewhere, and it's not true. But if you do or don't, maybe you've been off for the last couple of weeks and now you've popped back into work and suddenly, oh man, you can't go to the gym exactly when you want to. And you've got to squeeze it in after work sometime. And now you're tired. And real life is set in and you got to coordinate with the kids' schedule maybe, or your partner's schedule, and work has got you dragged out because you just went back to the office and there's 8 million emails that you didn't get to over the holidays, and that's stressful. There's no such thing as vacation, kids. Okay? I worked office gigs long enough to know that there's no such thing as vacation. There's a temporary reprieve from work that you pay for when you get back. It's like taking out a loan, right? You get that money, but then they hit you with the interest. And the interest is the 8 million emails that are waiting for in your inbox when you get back, right? So that's stressful, and just working again is stressful, and you're tired. And if you made it to the gym a few times, probably your body hurts if you're not accustomed to that. And man, this is the hard part. This is when it gets real. And this is probably why a lot of the January crowd doesn't make it into February, because what you're trying to do butts up against your lifestyle. And that's why you don't set resolutions, you set lifestyle changes. And you incorporate this into your life somehow. But it takes time for that to kick in, and it takes time for that to actually become part of your lifestyle. Now, I used to get annoyed with the January crowd, but no longer. Today, 2020, I too am turning over a new leaf, and I salute the January crowd because you people are the folks who are in there actually trying to do something, and I think we need to applaud that. I think we need to be positive about that. And my message to the January crowd is to hang in there, okay? January is going to be rough, especially in this part of the world where it snows and it's cold and it's dark and it's gray And all that can affect your mood. It can make you not want to get out there and do that thing. And if you're in this position right now, where you're tired, where your body hurts, where you're already thinking about skipping out on the gym, or you're already starting to slide into bad eating habits because that's what you've always done, and that's a lot easier than making those sacrifices, my encouragement to you is to hang in there, all right? Make it to February. Just make it to February. And when you get to February, and you're going to see a lot of the January crowd disappear at that point, stay with it and know that you stayed with it. And by February, this should be becoming a bit of a habit for you. You should be developing some resilience. Your body will get accustomed to this schedule. It will get accustomed to this exercise. You'll probably begin to be seeing some improvements with whatever you're trying to do. Improvements come very quickly because your body is behind where it wants to be, so it very quickly catches up. And so the first 3 months, you'll probably see a lot of improvement if you hang in there and if you stick to it. So January crowd, do that, okay? Go in, drag yourself in, force yourself in, whatever you've got to do. Make it part of your lifestyle. Hang in, and then, if you stay for a year, next January, you can poo-poo the January crowd, and that's a fun and satisfying thing. And then after a few years, you can evolve to a point where you celebrate the January crowd, okay? So hang in there. And it's the same for everything, by the way. The gym is just most relevant to my life and probably the cliche that we're most accustomed to. I don't envy you quitting smoking, people. That looks brutal. I don't know how you do that. My advice is just to hang in there too. And, whatever the resolution is, try and reframe it as a change to your lifestyle and incorporate it into your lifestyle however you can, and hang in, because it's hardest right now. It's hardest this week. And then next week, maybe it gets a little easier and a little easier and a little easier. And you might even start to like it at some point down the road, So all of you January people, we're all January people on some level. Most of us, try to do something different to improve ourselves come Janvier. So I'm the same way. I'm working on stuff. I'm working on trying to improve my thinking, my positivity. I know that surprises you. I know, because you tune in and you're like, he's just the happy-go-luckiest guy on the planet Earth. But the truth is, I struggle as much as anybody else with trying to stay positive about things, trying to see things as opportunities. And, that's one of the reasons I'm sitting in this chair right now, is a commitment I have to trying to be optimistic about things. And it brings me to this concept of reframing. Okay? Now, I've been plagued by negative thinking my whole life. Negative thinking is cautious and very comfortable, and it also absolves you of a lot of responsibility for things in your life. If you think negatively, then, you can absolve yourself of responsibility when things go wrong. And it's a coping mechanism, and I'm not going to get into all the psychology of that because I ain't no psychologist, but this concept of reframing is important. Now, Solosode 1, which was the last episode I put out, was a real experiment for me, okay? And before I go a step further, I want to say thank you so much to all of the people who wrote to me to say how much they liked the Solosode. Sometimes when you do this, when you podcast, when you blog, when you do these things, you work in kind of a vacuum, and you often don't hear a lot of feedback. And it's been the same with me and all of the various things that I've tried to do. Sometimes you put the stuff out and you wonder, is anybody consuming this? Is anybody reading, listening, paying the slightest attention? It can be very hard to tell sometimes. And so when I put out the Solosode, I had several people write to me to say how much they liked it, how much they were inspired by it, and even entertained by it, dare I say. So I want to thank all those people so much. It makes a huge difference for me to get that feedback, and it's one of the things that keeps a person going. this is not easy to do. This is a time-consuming thing. It's a project that I'm still kind of flying by the seat of my pants on, and you wonder sometimes if it's worth doing. And I'm really grateful to all the people who said that they liked that episode. But that was a challenge for me because I've always interviewed people, right? I've always had other people on the mic. And if you've been listening all along, you know that the mic intimidates me. It's a very, very strange situation to find yourself in, to have a mic recording you talking to yourself, presuming an audience, right? So I sat down to do that Solosode not knowing if I would be able to even do it. I didn't know if I had anything really to say. I had some notes. I didn't know if I was going to stumble over them. I didn't know if I was going to be interesting or articulate or fluid or any of that stuff. I might have sounded like a moron. I might have completely lost my train of thought everywhere. Oh, look at that. Oh, sorry about that. So I didn't know. I didn't know how well that was going to go. And it was an act of courage for me to sit down and do it. But part of the success of that episode, and hopefully of this episode, is this concept of reframing. So I'm at a certain point in my life, wouldn't even have tried to do the Solosode because the negative voices in my head would have said, you have nothing to say, or you have nothing to say that's worthwhile, or who on earth is going to listen to you blather on about yourself for 45 minutes? And that would have killed it right off the bat. So I've learned this concept of reframing, or shifting the question. So instead of going into it saying, what if I have nothing to say? I went into it saying, what might I say? And this is a shift of perception that applies to almost anything you face in your whole life. Instead of, this can't work out, reframe it. How can this work out? It's the same with this episode right now, because I got even less to go on this time, all right? I'm almost totally winging this. Again, a few notes, but it's like, okay, I might have nothing to say. But if you reframe it to, what might I say? What might I talk about? It opens up possibility. It invites in this energy that is looking for something, that's creating something, that drives something, as opposed to shutting something down. So, I came downstairs fighting all that resistance. Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, Do the Work, Turning Pro. It's a trilogy of books about creating, specifically to do with writing, but applies to anything that you're creating. And man, that resistance thing is really powerful, and it's hit me today. So instead of giving into the resistance, which was my intense temptation, I've for a couple of hours have been fighting against this, all right? Flip it. Take it from this won't work to how might this work? And so you drag your butt to the chair because, as Stephen Pressfield says in his trilogy, a pro does the work. And so a pro sits his butt in the chair and puts his fingers on the keyboard, or in this case, sits his butt in the chair and presses play or record on the recorder. And here I am. So as I'm going into the new year, I'm trying to reframe things. My music career is not as busy as I want it to be. Flip it. Reframe it. How might it work out that I get more gigs? You know what I mean? How might it work out that I get more opportunities? And this, it seems to me, is more of a flow-inducing approach to a given problem, okay? So here I am, trying my darndest to reframe solo podcasting from I can't do this to how might I do this? And I'm doing it right now, and hopefully you're still with me. The last thing I want is for these shows to be of utterly no value to you. So I'm trying, January crowd. Sometimes the very least that you can do is just try to bring some positivity in, because, man, 2020 has started rough, okay? It started rough globally. It started rough right here in my own home. There's a leak that I'm dealing with that needs a plumber. On Christmas Eve, I got a notice from the Canada Revenue Agency, which is something to do with back taxes and a mix-up and threatening that I owe a bunch of money that I don't owe. I got that going on. I got this leak thing. There's other stuff happening. The tranquility of my New Year's Day was shattered by the apparent appearance of an animal somewhere in my house that was not one of my cats. None of this is good. We got Australia on fire. We got Trump. We got Iran. We got World War III threatened. We have Liverpool running away with the English Premier League. We have my beloved Montreal Canadiens dropping quickly out of the playoff picture. There's bad stuff going on, kids. And sometimes all you can do is bring a little positivity into the picture. And that's what I'm trying to do with this episode. It isn't going to be a long one. It's not going to be, I don't think, earth-shattering. It's not even going to be as personal as what I delivered on the first Solosode. But sometimes your obligation to humanity is simply to do something positive. Simply to work from a positive energy. And so I'm trying to encourage you, gentle listener, this first real week of the decade, when stuff gets real, encourage you to be positive. And I struggle really, really mightily with this at times. I got a lot of stuff that I'm working on, specifically with regards to my thinking. So this is me combating a negativity that would keep me from doing it at all. So this is my encouragement. Do something positive. I wrote a blog post about compliments one time, a couple years ago, and it's on my site somewhere. john-huff.com. And it was about the power of complimenting someone, especially when you're in a lousy mood. One of the greatest things you can do to lift yourself out of a dark mood is to pay somebody else a compliment. It's really weird, but it makes both of you feel good. And putting positivity into the world has much the same effect. I already feel less resistance now that I'm 21 and a half minutes into talking to you. Sometimes, as I said in the last episode, when you push through fear, when you push through resistance, things open up for you on the other side. And I hope this is opening up for you right now. Now, so what we've got is, you go January crowd. We've got, hey, think about reframing whatever it is that's giving you resistance in your life. Third, most important, I want to talk to you today on Solosode number 2 in the first real week of a decade about Mikel Arteta. Now, right now, most of you are out there going, who on earth is Mikel Arteta? Glad you asked. Mikel Arteta is none other than the recently minted head coach manager of Arsenal Football Club. Now, a lot of you are out there going, what on earth is Arsenal Football Club? And you have some soul searching to do, okay? Now, Arsenal Football Club is the club I hold most dear in world football. That's football as opposed to American football. And I don't want to get into a whole thing with you guys down there. All right. Football, as the world knows it, soccer, as we know it in North America. Arsenal is my team. All right. And Mikel Arteta was just named manager of that club. And before you tune out, before you click off because you don't want to listen to another stupid sports show, I do really good voices. That was not one of them. Okay. But this is all a work in progress. So, cut me some slack. Mikel Arteta is illustrative of something that's important. Okay. And this has struck me from the moment he was hired. Now let's go back in time. Now, I don't want to go too far back. I'm not going to give you a whole history lesson, but, Arsenal hired a guy named Unai Emery 18 months ago, all right? And he replaced a legacy manager, Arsene Wenger, who was a legend of the Premier League, a legend of Arsenal, a legend of football. And he managed the club for 22 years and he won a bunch of stuff. And, the club enjoyed its greatest and, declining after that period under Arsene Wenger. And so when it came time to replace Arsene Wenger, there were two schools of thought. It's like, we need a steady hand. We need an experienced manager who can step into this situation and exert some control and balance and keep everything calm and who knows what he's doing. And there was another school of thought that says we need a young, passionate, inspired manager who's hungry and who has new ideas and can bring a fresh, modern perspective to this team. Long story short, Mikel Arteta was the face of option B. At the time, like 36 years old, relatively recently retired as a player, played for Arsenal, was the captain of Arsenal for a while, and won stuff with Arsenal. So a respected dude at the club and a very good player. But he moved on, and he went to the dark side. And he went to Manchester City, and he became the assistant to a also legendary manager called Pep Guardiola. Now, I have my own opinions on Pep Guardiola, but this ain't a soccer show, all right? So Arteta went and worked with Pep, learning from the best. And then all of a sudden, this manager job came up at Arsenal, and Arteta was one of the names who might have replaced Arsene Wenger at the club. And he was doing his thing, man. He was doing the work. He was learning and he was working and whatever, but he had no top flight management experience. In fact, he'd never managed a game. And so they didn't hire Mikel Arteta. They hired Unai Emery 18 months ago. An experienced guy, decorated in Europe, a steady hand, it was thought, to guide the good ship Arsenal forward into a new era. Mikel Arteta did not get the job he wanted. And that must have been disappointing. But what he did is he turned around and he went back to his job at City and he kept working, kept learning from Pep Guardiola, kept doing the grind, putting in the time, putting in the hours, becoming a 10,000 hour guy, or as David Lee Roth would say, a 50,000 hour guy, right? And Unai Emery took over the club, and there was a brief period where it looked like it was going to work out. And then the wheels fell utterly off. And this fall, Arsenal opened the Premier League season, the worst season they've had in 40 years. Complete collapse, absolute shambles. And there's a lot of people who should be held responsible for that. They can't all be fired, so the traditional method is to fire the coach/manager. Unai Emery was fired from his job, and that's too bad because he seems like a good dude, and everybody liked him personally, but whatever he was trying to do wasn't working, and the team was going down the toilet rapid, all right? And so there's a new hiring process, and long story short, Mikel Arteta was then hired by Arsenal 18 months after not getting the job, okay? And still 18 months later, no management experience, still considered an inexperienced manager. And a lot of people had reservations about this because a club the size and stature of Arsenal should have a manager to match. Now, between you and me, I think they have one. It just hasn't been recognized yet, okay? None of this is the point. The point is, when the time was right, Mikel Arteta got his shot. Okay? And this is really exciting to me, all right? Because I'm a person who's looking for a shot too, you know what I mean? The music business, it's weird, you need opportunities, and it's hard sometimes to keep grinding away in the practice room, trying to work on all of the weaknesses you have, and to not see things unfolding, or not see things necessarily growing in the way you might like. And this is not just me. This is anybody, who's grinding away at anything. There are periods of time when it feels like what you're doing is not opening up the opportunities you might want, right? So when Arteta got hired, I got really excited about this because 18 months later, the time was right. And that is an illustration of some things, Keep doing the work. Your opportunity will come. And then when it comes, be ready. And this is another exciting part because Arsenal, now it's only been a couple of weeks, Arsenal is a transformed club already. Well, the results have been up and down, but they did take a 2-0 win from Manchester United, which is always a sweet, sweet thing to watch. And the team is playing more organized, more aggressively. They're getting some results now. There's a new belief in the side. Players that had fallen off are beginning to find their form again. The crowd, the fan base that has been alienated for a long time is suddenly plugging back in. There's been an uplift, right? There's been a surge of energy around the club on the pitch and off the pitch. And it's been very, very exciting to watch. Arteta appears to be the right guy for the job, but was he the right guy for the job 18 months ago? Now, he has come in and blown people away with his confidence, with his decisiveness. You know, he's really, really looked capable, and it's showing up on the pitch, which means you got to be ready when the time comes. And I wonder, 18 months ago, was Mikel Arteta ready? What would he say about that? I'm not 100% sure, but for me, it's a positive message that if you don't get that thing you wanted, or it didn't work out, maybe that's the greatest thing. Because maybe 18 months later it will, and you will have put in the work that it takes to be ready for that when it happens. You see what I'm saying? It's hard. It's hard to keep grinding when it feels like things aren't going your way. But the opportunities come, you know? The opportunities eventually come if you hang in there and you keep improving and you keep doing the work and you keep committed to it and you keep your dedication. And there it is. The opportunities come. The opportunity came for Mikel Arteta. Some people say he's still not qualified for that job, but man, he's crushing it. And so that's my encouragement to all of you and to me. Hang in there. Keep doing your thing, you know, keep working, keep improving, and trust that when the time is right, the right opportunities will come. And when they do, if you've been doing your diligence, you will be ready for them. And maybe 2020 is your year. Maybe that promotion you didn't get last year is coming up again, and now is the time. And before, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't the right time before, but now it is. Musicians, maybe that gig that you've always wanted is about to become available. You know, people leave bands all the time, and all of a sudden, as you're sitting there, you might get the call. Hey man, that band is looking for a guitar player, and finally you're ready. And you've learned all this stuff, and you've been working on your ability, and you walk in and you crush that. Maybe you're a painter, and suddenly there's a gallery, you know, opportunity. Maybe there's a show opportunity. Maybe you are an actor and that audition that you maybe weren't ready for last time, you're ready for now. Maybe there's a play and you're about to be cast in it. Maybe the time is right to start that business. Maybe the funding that you wanted is finally coming through. But you gotta hang in there, kids. And I'm talking to myself when I say this to you. I would never, ever want to come off as though I've got answers to life, because I surely don't. But I can talk from my own experience, and I've adapted well enough to see from the experiences of others how things might work. Mikel Arteta got his job, and he's crushing it. You might get your opportunity this year. I might get my opportunity this year. Maybe we're all going to crush it. You know? Put a little positivity in the world in the meantime. Keep working. Go January, crowd. We're at 33 minutes according to my reckoning right now. And that's enough, isn't it? That's enough. I've given you everything I can for today. I pushed past the resistance to do this. Hopefully you made it this far. And man, thank you again to the people who said they liked I almost said Rotasode, because people do like the Rotasodes. Thank you to those who said they like the Solosode. If you like this Solosode, please do me a favor and let me know, because it's a shot in the arm for me too, man. And as much as I'm trying to put something positive out, if you can send something positive back, I would surely appreciate that. And I'm starting to ramble. That's what happens when the train goes off the tracks, kids. And I'm going to shut this down right now. I'm hoping to be back next time with a more traditional episode, supposing I can get the interview I'm chasing. Until then, I wish you the best. crush this first real week, crush next week. Take it one day, 1 week at a time, kids. And, I'm learning a bunch of songs for a tour I'm about to do, and I shall quote one of them right now. Put a little love in your heart, kids, and I will talk to you next time! Thank you once again, gentle listener, for taking in today's Solosode. I do appreciate you listening. If you want to know more about the show, go to www.john-huff.com. That's JOHN-HUFF.com. You can also find the show on Facebook at the John Huff Podcast. If you're an Instagram person, you can find me at JW_Huff. No matter where you listen to the show, please do me a big favor and leave a rating and review, preferably a positive one. And if you like these episodes, please share them with your friends. I appreciate that too. That's all the time we have for today, but I'll be back very soon. Until then, keep your wits about you, and remember, good things happen when you put yourself out there. Bye for now. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Yeah.